It's 8:30. Good evening, good evening. It's Monday, December 9th, and this is Your Voice with the NRP, where political discourse in the Federation reaches its apex. Tonight, Brantley's $273 million budget will be placed under the microscope. Dr. Patricia Bartlett is here with surgical tools in hand. She is ready to be precise and incisive. Her analysis, as usual, is spectacular. We will look at CCM's 2025 fiscal measures, and as you can see on the screen, she's all dressed up as Santa Claus. Of course, it's Christmas tree lighting in the village of Brownhill. I imagine, Pat, that you got a bit of that, and now you've come for all of this, 8:30 until 10 o'clock.
Yes, Steve, and thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be in your company, and I would like to...
I'm blushing.
I would like to say the same for the people who are overseas, especially our friends in New York, Annette, Camilla, Twila, my sister-in-law, Leonie, Keith, well, he's here. And, we have a lot of friends out there. And, of course, my nephew down in Florida, my uncle down in St. John, USBI, and closer home, my cousin Sinric there in St. Kitts, and we have to remember to make sure that we remind the people of the numbers, because my cousin was quite upset he couldn't call in because he did not remember the numbers, and we are not giving them the numbers often enough to remind them of how to get in touch with us. So make sure that we do that a couple of times tonight, Steve.
Okay.
Because I would not be chastised by my loving cousin there in St. Kitts anymore.
You shouldn't be. Yes, you see, we forget that not everybody is watching because there's a banner behind us with the numbers. There are people in their cars, on the street, so I'll be mindful of that.
Please be mindful of that. And plus, as a matter of fact, tonight, I think for some reason you're not showing the complete banner. But in any event, we'll get to that. And so I just want to welcome everyone. Of course, I had to come away from my village Christmas tree lighting. I'm always there. I mean, even from a small girl, I used to go when we used to have Christmas tree lighting. That used to be in church, not in the, and so I always like decorating, and so I'd always make myself available to help in whatever way. And then, of course, when I got a little older and could afford to buy decorations, I was in charge of the lighting of the Christmas tree in Brownhill for quite a while. Before, of course, you have to move on. Younger ones came and pushed me out of the way.
I see.
And so tonight, people of Brownhill have something, at least an event to go out, to celebrate. I don't know if we're all in that level or that mode of celebrating, because I'm still trying to feel the Christmas spirit myself. I'm working on that. I promise that I am, because tonight I decided I was not going to leave the house without my Christmas hat.
Looks good.
I Miss Hunter this. I think I brought you a hat last year. I hope you didn't just throw it away. But everybody, I think I have more hats that I can replenish for those in the studio who have to bring cheer to people, but who don't necessarily want to conform to the traditional red hat. So since we are NRP and we are green, then I'm proud to wear my green hat. And so, like I said, I was there. I watched my niece, these different generations of nieces coming along. So I think that is down to the third generation for me. Anyway, I went to watch my niece dance, and so I had to pull myself away just after she would have completed her number. And so I'm here tonight to spend a little time with the people. Like I said, there's quite a bit that we need to look through as it relates to the 2025 budget. And on the internet and on Facebook and in social media, I did promise the people that they would want to hear from us tonight, because there's quite a bit that the CCM would not let us know what is going on. But we're here to shed light and all those things that they think that they couldn't bury. And in the last minute, they would just bring it out and drop it on the leader because she has, limited time to respond. But of course, we have all year to go through the budget. And so I've started the process.
Okay, so you left Brownhill. The ceremony was going on. Are the geese getting fat over there?
Only one geese in, one goose. Only one goose in Brownhill seems to be getting fat, and he lives up on the hill.
Okay.
And so the peasants are down, the pheasants are down in the village, and Brownhill people are, and we overuse this word, but really we are a resilient people. We managed to bounce back. We are holding our own. Of course, things are hard for everybody. Everybody is balling, not just in Brown Hill. And so I don't know if you have enough grease going around. But the premier, incidentally, is at the function tonight, this evening, the Christmas tree lighting. He hasn't been there for quite a while. I think somebody said something over 6 years. I have not been paying attention because whether he's sure or not, we usually have a grand time. But apparently he has taken the time this year to be there. I don't know if that is a sign of something to come. But he's there this year for the first time in a lot of years.
Okay. All right. Well, as you said, for most of the evening, we'll be looking at the budget delivered last Tuesday, December 3rd, it was, I think. Yeah, the 3rd.
Yes.
Under the theme, Moving Forward, People-Focused, Supporting Entrepreneurship, and Bolstering Job Creation. And of course, the day after having received a copy at 10 o'clock in the morning, the party leader came and in a calm, cool, collected manner delivered her response in over 2 hours. And most people thought that she did a very good job peeling back the layers of the budget and schooling them on things like how to monetize the orange, green, and blue economy. I'm sure you'll reflect on that as well. But before we get into that, and let me say to the callers or those listening and viewing, we're interested in hearing from you. It's an interactive program, but we won't be accepting any calls until at least 9 p.m. We're going to give Dr. Bartlett a chance to make a case, and then you can join us, 469-7953, 669-7312, and 766-7312. So at the top of the hour, or when prompted, we'll ask you to give us a call because, of course, the budget impacts all of us in this 36 square miles. I don't want to incur your wrath because I know the last 2 times you were here, you thought that we didn't pay enough attention to Social Security. And this is your last occasion for the year. Unless there's some unforeseen circumstance, you won't be back. So I don't want you to take this over into the new year. So I'll give you an opportunity to talk first on Social Security and also to make some points on the CBI, and then we will plunge into the budget.
Well, sure, Steve. Thanks for that opportunity. Like you said, I've always attempted to say something about Social Security because it has always been an issue in which I've had, keenest interest. And I have to pay attention at my age because, I'm getting my age pension. And so I can't afford for us to take our eyes off the ball. And, we have to make sure that the persons who are in position to do something about it, that they do something about it. And we have to agitate on this issue. We can't just let it slide. And so I don't presume to lecture Dr. Jew, but I don't know that he's necessarily getting the best advice out there. Mm-hmm. And I am not comfortable with it. I've said I've not been comfortable with it for the longest while. And, I always say I like Dr. Jew, right? Mm-hmm. But for some reason, he ain't taking me on.
He had a birthday recently, didn't you?
He had a birthday.
Did you send him a gift?
Well, boy,
a lot of the leaders had birthday.
I guess we ain't that close. Because he didn't send me any token either.
Oh, okay.
It looked like I like Dr. Drew more than he liked me, But in any event, I like Dr. Drew, and I just wish that he had better advice, better advisors around him, because some of the things that have been said that, that he's coming with, I'm sure that had he had better advice, he would have been able to relate to people better and calm the nerves sometimes, So, when I was here the last time, I drew attention to the fact that the actuarial report that is due, it overdue, that we need to make sure that we get a hold of that we can peruse it at our leisure and try to make sense out of what it is that the actuary is saying. Likewise, I think I would have made an appeal for the release of the financial statements. So the reason why I would have said that Dr. Judo is not necessarily, I don't think he's necessarily getting the best advice that he could, is that I would have heard him on the radio sometime, I think it was last week or
on the Freedom.
Yes.
On Wednesday, I think it was.
Yes. And he was addressing this issue. And of course, he's always, for some reason, twinning the Social Security with the Development Bank. And I wish that he would divorce them at this point, because people at the point know that they're like, okay, well, if you know that there's something wrong with the development bank, why not prosecute people or do whatever? But for you to start telling people that because of development bank, you have bailed out the Social Security, it lends itself to a level of discomfort for me. You know, I know better. And so maybe my nerves are not as, ragged as they could be hearing these kind of things. But we need not to go down that road, The Social Security Act of 1977 speaks specifically to when you have what they call temporary insufficiency in the Social Security fund, meaning they're not as fluid, they're not as liquid, they don't have as much cash at hand as they should to pay the benefits that are due right now, for whatever the reasons are. Maybe some people are not paying Social Security back, and we understand that some people don't pay back as they should on the schedule that they would have already, assigned to. For instance, the Development Bank, we understand that Social Security would have given them loans and they ought to have a payment schedule. And at some point, we understand in 2022, there were a couple of months, I would imagine the months in transition, because remember that was the year that we had an election. And so a couple of months between there and payments would have been missed. But I didn't think that it would be that big an issue for us to pay up to that date and then return to the level of the payments that were agreed to initially. And so Social Security might not have been distressed. Mind you, we still are not seeing the financials, and so we don't know what position that they are in. But I do understand that they would have already had to start breaking some CDs, in order to pay the immediate benefits. But even so, if they run into problems, that is not an executive problem to handle. And the Act speaks to that in Section 42 of the Social Security Act. And so I think that Dr. Ju need to read that section again. If he hasn't yet done so, well, he should read it, because it is not, the burden is not on him. He doesn't have to take on that as his responsibility to fix. That is the responsibility of the legislature, because the Act says that any temporary insufficiency in the fund shall be met from the monies provided by the legislature, meaning that Parliament has to now say, okay, we are now going to make sure that from the consolidated funds, whatever money Social Security needs at this point in time, to weather the storm, so to speak, they get them through the rough period to where they don't need that help again, then you take it out of the consolidated fund. That is what is instructed for you to do. And then at a later date, then Social Security would repay that money back to the consolidated fund, which, for all we know, has over $1 billion or billions of dollars in it. But what Dr. Ju has been saying is that he has been using the development bank to stabilize the Social Security. That is not necessary. And that gives us some jitters, and it is, we need to, I think, desist from twinning the two activities, because these are two separate institutions that are run separately, and the accountability is different. And so I don't want us to get mixed up in that, the Social Security to get mixed up with the development bank thing. So Dr. Ju, if you're listening, or if someone who is, positioned to listen and feed that information back, I would like really for him to just take a look at that and make sure that we don't continue along that vein, because it is not helpful. It is not helpful. It just reflects that we are not paying attention to what the Act says in the first instance, or, well, we're not paying attention. Let me not say the or, because like I said, Dr. Ju is my friend. I like Dr. Ju. I don't want it to go any further. As it relates to the actuarial report, like I've said before, we need to see that, because that is where it's going to tell us the strength of the Social Security scheme, the risks that are associated with it, and the longevity of it. How much longer can we persist if we do not do the reforms that I've been asking for? And when I heard Dr. Ju saying, well, that the reforms should be coming up, or reforms are on the table, I thought that he was going to make a grand announcement that the reforms are going to be instituted, whether people, and he said he has to take some harsh decisions. So that is one of the decisions I expected to hear him announce, that we are going to make these, sacrifices now rather than wait until later. Because I think by now we would have realized that we can't continue to kick the can down the road. And that just not only apply to Social Security and the way we're handling our affair there, but it applies to even NEVIS and how we're treating our debt crisis, because it is a debt crisis, and we'll get to that. And so we have to be mindful of these things. As it relates to the financial statements that are by law that should be published every year, the Social Security Board, they have a duty, once they receive the certified audited accounts, to make sure that they turn it over to the Prime Minister within 30 days. There is, you can't hold on to it. And then once they would have done their duty in turning over the financials to Dr. Drew, then his duty is as soon as possible after that to bring it to the Parliament. What I would have heard from Dr. Drew was that the financial statements, that they had what they call a qualified financial statement. Now, for those who are not paying attention, what that means simply is that there might be some little indiscretion or something that doesn't add up. And the auditor might say, well, I'm not so sure about this, because based on the scope of work that I have, I couldn't get any deeper. So, for instance, let's say that the auditor would have come upon the situation as it relates to the non-payment of the Social Security contributions of the Nevis Island Administration for its employees, plus its own contributions. And it is something that is there just on the books, but there were no measures put in place as to how to treat with that at the administrative level. Then the auditor could question it, but if they don't get a satisfactory response, they may just decide to leave that alone because they can't probe any deeper for whatever reason. And they could say, well, okay, this is a qualified financial statement, in that there's maybe one little thing here that, niggling us, that we cannot address. We cannot really explain. The notes, the explanatory notes really would not make you any wiser. But in essence, the overall financial statement still stands. So it is still something that is usable. You could still distribute it. You can still use it to make policy decisions. And so having a qualified financial statement does not mean that you cannot release it or you cannot share it. And as a matter of fact, the Act says that you must take it, all it speaks to is a certified, audited financial statement. It never said if the opinion of the auditor was adverse, or if it was qualified or unqualified or whatever. It didn't put any kind of handle on it. He said just have a certified audited account or financials and pass it on. And that is all people are asking for. So there's no excuse to say that it is a qualified financial statement, and so we can't release it. So Dr. Drew, the people who are around you, they ought to be able to advise you, better than this. And we need to see those financial statements because we need to know it is our business. It is not just the business of cabinet. Because for him not to release it, it means that other people, other members of parliament who are not on his side of still no wiser. But everyone ought to know what is going on as it relates to these organizations or these institutions, because they're our monies. I mean, I didn't have a say in it. It was compulsory. Man was like, I'm going to take your money whether you want me to take it out or not. Once you have a job, I'm going to take your money. And if you're self-employed, at some point they got to that as well. If you're self-employed, you have to pay as well. You can't say that I'm self-employed, so I am going to save my money for my retirement, the best way, because I'm managing my own business. Why can't I do that? That's not an option. If you're self-employed, you still have to pay into Social Security. So it is all of our business. It's not just a select few. It's not just government workers' business. It's everybody's business. Once you're employed or you're, whether it be self-employed or employed by someone else, it means that you must pay. You don't have a choice. You must pay into Social Security. And so for that reason, I'm asking for a little more transparency going forward on this matter. And I don't think that January should come and go and we don't have the release of the financial statements as they relate to Social Security, because that is an untenable position to be in. And so, Dr. Joe, I'm appealing to you, please let us get the actuarial report going so people can know. We have been discussing reforms, but that would have been based on the circumstances of the 13th actuarial review, which would have been in 2020. And so now that the 2023 is out, we need to know, we need an update. Do we get, more concerned about it? And I imagine that we should be getting even more concerned about it, because the further we go away from the point of, making sure that the reforms that have been recommended by the actuary, the further away we go from that, the more difficult it is for us to rein things back in. It means that people are going to end up paying more than the 13% even at this point in time, suggesting would be barely adequate to take us beyond 2050. And so for that reason, I think that we ought to get that matter resolved, and we need to make sure that we get back to informing people in a timely manner. And so that's all I would have to say on Social Security at this point in time.
Okay, well, let me say here that it's December 9th. If memory serves, Carnival starts this weekend, I think somewhere around the 13th. Budget is the 16th, I think it is, which is next Monday. These politicians tend to slam the door shut. You're saying January, we should get the house in order.
No, I'm saying usually, we like to start things on everything.
Well, how about, and I'm sure station manager wouldn't mind, Carlisle Powell. We extend an invitation to Dr. Jew to come over to Nevis, sit in the chair in which you're sitting. 2 years and 4 months in, he still has not done anything official on Nevis. So we'll open the studio to him to come and share important matters dealing with our Social Security. We know that the budget is up, and he probably will talk a bit about it. But of course, mostly uncontested, and the general public has no way to delving further into it. So we're extending an invitation. Dr. Jew, you visit to Nevis. It's 2 years and 4 months late, but we still offer that to you. You think we might hear anything in the budget session about Social Security?
Well, I'm hoping that even if it is not mentioned, then you have people opposite, and that is
opposite. who are they?
Well, we do have Dr. Harris.
Yeah, he's the only one opposite.
He's not bashful about raising these issues.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we know that our premier is almost like a lapdog now, so we're not expecting him to bring up any controversial issues.
His second in motions brought by the... Yeah.
No, we're not expecting anything meaningful in terms of, being questioning as it relates to these issues coming from the leader of the opposition, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate because he's supposed to be the whip. He's the one who should, as the leader of the opposition, he's supposed to say, these are the issues that people want to hear about. Let us address them. We can't hide them from the people. But you see, the problem is there, though. He can't be telling somebody on the one hand, don't hide information, and on the other hand, he's himself hiding information. So that is a dilemma for him. And so I don't expect that level of engagement from our premier who sits in the National Parliament as the leader of the opposition. And so Dr. Harris, who is quite versed in these matters, he would have to bring this to the fore. And so we wait to hear. I don't want to preempt what is going to happen. Well, I'm not in a position to anyway. But I would predict that he would say something because he has been so vocal on social media. Well, maybe not social media, but on the radio. Let me call it that, social media anyway. Yeah, but he has been out there making statements. So in Parliament is a good place for him to continue, and that is when everybody is listening, because some people are quite selective about which channels they tune into ordinarily. But when there is your business, the people's business that is being presented, everyone has a vested interest in it. And so I would imagine that everyone would be listening, not just to hear if they're getting a double salary because they're not likely to get it, but just to hear what the issues are and how, because I'm sure a lot of people would be concerned about how is it they're going to balance this budget in St. Kitts, having been dependent on the CBI revenues for so many years. Know that we've had a shortfall this year. What is to happen for next year?
Don't you think those are matters which should have been discussed even ahead of the budget? I don't know how many.
In what forum?
Well, I noticed in St. Kitts, for instance, the federal ministers are having their own press conferences.
Okay, a press conference, okay.
Duggins had one last week. Congress Maynard is having one this week. They're trying to make their case that they're doing well in their ministries. But, and I raised this last week, the premier, I believe, would have been a bit blindsided in preparing his budget because the receipts from the CBI are down up to September 30th, 218 million, whereas prior to that was 600 million. How do you plug in the 66 million and you don't know what's in the coffers, what's likely to be there in December? Shouldn't our leaders have been coming to us and telling us about the state of play? Are we making up the lost ground in the CBI? Are we going to turn the corner in January?
Well, Steve, if the premier were to not to include that, then it would have meant that he would have to show us in the budget where he was going to get the money from, for the shortfall, anticipating that the CBI would not be doing as well as it would have done even this year. Because from the things that I'm hearing now, I'm not seeing it, but maybe I'm not in the position to see it clearly. But, the premier putting that in the budget, it's like $66 million. He doesn't have to make us stay up at night to wonder how is he going to balance the budget. So for him, it is okay to put it in, whether he's sure about it or not. And he's always keen to remind us, mind you, this is just a projection. We can only do we can only do so much. And it would always be based on how money is coming to the Treasury. He's always keen to remind us. So he, sometimes I don't think, is very serious about what the budgeting process is all about. You have to be as realistic as possible and plan your programs and your budget and your projects accordingly. So for him not to recognize that maybe he should adjust his expectations, I said the last time, I said that I think would be foolhardy on him. But notwithstanding, he's just going through the process because we'll get to the budget, But for him to come and not know where he was going to find a 66 million right away, he would have to be borrowing. And when we get to examine the budget for 2025, we recognize that there's no wiggle room. There's no scope for him to be able to negotiate a deal, to get a loan, even if it is a concessionary loan, unless it is a loan that someone gives to him and says, just pay me back exactly what I pay you, what I gave you. Don't give no interest on it whatsoever, and pay me back over 10 years. It is not likely. But then again, that would still have to be recorded in the debt. And we already belly aching over the debt and, things he want to blame NRP for at this point in time. Ridiculous, assertions and stuff like that. But that is where he's at, But when he's going to make a budget, you have to be able to make some certain assumptions. No one said that you must be perfect, but you must employ a certain logic to it, something that makes sense. You can't make assumptions just, because, and he would have said, when St. Kitts used to take the bulk share of it, we didn't complain. But still, you don't think that St. Kitts will still take the bulk share of whatever comes in? He's the devil. What is the merit? What is the argument? And so he's trying to suggest that whether St. Kitts next year takes in 100 million, he's still going to get 66. Now, is that realistic? That's not realistic. And who is he selling it to? The people who most people have turned off anyway, are not listening to him. Because, I get snippets. And if he would have said things in the House, in the Assembly here, that are not contained, and I just want to make the disclaimer ahead of time before even delving into the budget for 2025, if he would have, in his oral presentation, if he would have said things that are not contained in the budget address as printed, then I plead the fifth on that one. If anything comes up and I say that something and he would have explained it, then I would apologize. I would retract it, and humbly apologize. But what I'm going to look at is exclusively based on what would have been presented in the written form of the budget address.
Okay, now as you go into the budget, I want to read into the record a quotation posted today by Dr. Kelvin Daly, such a brilliant researcher, and thought-provoking post that he made on Facebook attributed to Prime Minister Keith Rowley of Trinidad and Tobago, the 7th Prime Minister of that nation. You said already that the budget was a blame budget. Everything is NRP fault. This is what Daly posted, attributing it to Keith Rowley. Anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Bear in mind that Rowley was first elected on September 9th, 2015, 7 months after Brantley entered an arrangement with Unity. So he had 2 governments at his disposal, and a conservative estimate in the last couple of years when he's been premier of $2.2 billion. 2 governments strapped around his waist. And yet, he is blaming the NRP for everything. He should take a look at the history of Keith Rowley, who was just 9 years in. I hear a lot of people talking about these guys have been in office for 10 years. CCM was elected on the 22nd of January, 2013. So in 43 days' time, it will be 12 years since Mark Brantley has been in the Nevis Island administration, 7 years since he has been premier, and of course, he had 7 years with the CBI money at his disposal in St. Kitts. Yet he turned the budget into what people are calling the blame budget. Over to you, Pat.
Yes, and we'll get into why is it he wants to blame NRP. And everybody have their own theory. I have mine. But before I get to the meat of what I want to say, I just want us to understand, and at least for all of us to come on the same level of understanding as it relates to the budget process. Because I find that too many people don't really understand how it goes, and then they lose interest because they think it's such a rigmarole kind of thing, that kind of, And so I just want people to understand it's not that difficult a concept to understand. So what it is really, the process, according to the Constitution, is that the minister who is responsible for finance should get the budget prepared. And we would have heard that sometimes they start early in the year and they have consultations with different stakeholders and all the rest of it. And so they come up with a budget. And you see that they have a volume of things there, 300-something plus pages, of the information that they think is relevant to be presented on the various ministries. That is the budget estimates, the budget estimates. So what the minister responsible for finance does is that he gets this budget, he gets into the House, and he presents it, or he tables it, so to speak. He comes in and says, this, Madam President, and he makes whatever, him in grand style. But he goes through the process of what they say is laying the budget on the table in the Parliament, right? Having done that, then he proceeds now with his appropriation bill. Now, he's going to have all this to say about, the different components of it. And so he has his say for 2.5 hours, something like that. But what this appropriation bill does is that it gives, at the end, when they pass it, it can most likely be passed anyway, because usually the government has the votes. You know, so even if someone else objects to it, it make no difference. They don't print the thing. They're going, you know, they have the votes. It's going to go through, right? So that's a given. So the appropriation bill, when it is passed, gives parliaments give the authority for the sums of monies to be withdrawn from the consolidated funds and distributed to these various, what they call ministries, or these various votes. And so it is specifically for what you say in the budget estimates this money is for. It's not for anything else. So when he comes in and he lays it on the table, whatever is contained therein, unless there is at that point in time he decides to make whatever adjustments or whatever modification, but once it is tabled, we're satisfied that the information we have here is correct, and this is the money that we're going to need to spend. This is the money we anticipate that we're going to make in revenues to take us through the year that is coming up. Most of the times, the Constitution says that you must bring it either before the year, the fiscal year that is coming up, or within 60 days of the year that is coming up. So 2025, if we don't present the budget by December 31st, then we have up until 2 months into the 2025 to present this budget. So having done that and gotten the votes, you distribute the monies to all the people and everybody go away knowing how much they're going to spend. If for some reason during the financial year you have a vote working with or you have a budget working with, you have to go over because the money that you got was not enough, or some emergency comes up or whatever, and you must have the spending done, then the Constitution or Parliament gives the Minister of Finance the authority to go ahead, give the Minister of Finance the authority to go ahead and authorize what they call appropriation or supplement appropriation warrants, right? So you get a warrant and it says, we had an emergency. The pipe burst and
hurricane came.
Right, and something, and so we must spend this money. So he goes ahead and he signs off on it. At some point, he must take it back to Parliament for them to go through the same process. He must prepare now a supplemental budget. So he's coming out with a supplemental budget that says, because of whatever the problem was, we now have to come back and ask for additional monies. So we need permission again to get our supplementary appropriation bill pass so we could cover the expenses. The same process that you went through initially when you came in December, you come back and you do that if you have to spend more than you anticipated that you would, or you have to spend on something new. Simple. However, once you start spending the people's money, you must account for every dollar that you spend. And so, in 2025, the Premier came to us and in his usual fashion, a lot of flair, not much, these guys call it a word salad. But that is one of the, what do you call it, the salad, the Caesar salad, the one that all you have is bush and a little thing sprinkled on it. That's all it is. It is not even a colorful one, we're accustomed to a garden salad with all kind of pretty things and stuff. No, it's just a plain salad, So his word salad extends from page 1 up to page 57. And so I don't want to bore anybody because I myself didn't listen to him, but I just want to select a few areas that I think that we need to zero in on. Because he, on his feet, said to Madam President, I wish to make it clear that the ballooning, and we're making reference to the comment that you made a while ago, that he is blaming NRP for what he said was his fiscal deficit that was greater than it should have been in 2023. This is 2025. We're going on 2025, mind you. Not many people are paying attention to what happened in 2023 because with 2024, and we're so absorbed by the hardships of 2024, nobody focus on what you say the deficit was. That is academic for a lot of people. We know that you have not been able to balance a budget for 7 years, except I think for 1 year, I think he said he had some small little surplus, which was,
Negligible.
nothing to write home about.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe it would have been 2 years, 2015 and 2020. And of course, those were election years. And in election years, we have more spending, and the auditor would have, pointed that out as well. So in any event, he got up and he said, Madam President, I wish to make it clear that the ballooning of our capital expenditure for the fiscal year 2023 was not of our own doing, but arose from the fact that this administration had to deal with a matter that was left over from the previous NRP-led administration. As we recall, the then NRP-led administration in 2007, took the decision to acquire the abandoned Restream property. And during their remaining time in office, they made no attempt to arrive at fair compensation value, and they never compensated the owners of for their property. I wish to make it clear to this honorable House that we have found no evidence as to why this property was acquired by the NRP-led NIA. We have found no plans, no discussions, no notes as to why this decision was taken or what the plans were for this property. Now, for those who listen to 2020, I'm sure that they would have heard so many times about the plans that were there for the Restream.
The tapes are all over social media.
Yeah. So I don't know who, maybe it's Madam President, she thinks that doesn't listen to 2020, and so she's not aware of what is going on. But when he said that, one of the first things that came to mind was, I can't believe this is the same person who, when they purchased the property over at Bad Plain, the Huggins residence, in 2018, until now, nobody have any plans for it.
And J.D. Keynes, who was here last week, says that she has had to write to the government. And I drove by there this afternoon just to see. Kusha trees, rodents, she said, coming from there.
Yeah. And they spent $2.7 million on that.
And they're talking about one.
And they're talking about Restream that has potential.
1.4 was for the land at Jessup's, yeah.
That's for Jessup's. But I didn't really necessarily say that just to draw attention to the fact that they wasted money up at, on that property. But when he would have said that, he left out the part about how much it would have cost if they had settled it shortly after they came in government. And I was like, well, how disingenuous. And then I said, you know what, let me go and do some research, because I like read, I want to see what was their posture as it related to the Restream Inn when they came in. Did they think it was a waste of time? Or did they think that, maybe they should have returned it? Because he said at some point they attempted to return the property to the owners. Or the owner or the creditor. Until now, I'm not even sure who they're dealing with, because that was not made clear. But when I went and looked, in 2018, and these are all attributed to the Premier, these statements. Every year, almost every year he had something to say in the House about Restream. And so in 2018, he said, Restream property, Madam Mr. President, this was Mr., we continue to seek a developer. So they had an interest in the Restream property. He didn't call it a abandoned property at that point. He's like, this was seeking to have a developer. In 2019, there was no mention of the Restream, but of course there was a mention of the house up at Bad Plain that cost us the $1.2 million US. So they paid for that, and it was no issue. But at the time, it didn't dawn on them that maybe they should pay something, even the interest, towards the Restream property. So nothing was mentioned in the budget address. Nothing was recorded in the budget estimates for Restream. 2021, he came back. He said, we continue to work closely with a proposed developer of Restream, Belmont Development, and he listed a slew of developers whom he said that they were pursuing or working closely with. No budget for the Restream, no mention of no payment for Restream. He came back in 2022 and he said, and he's talking to the madam, He said, we continue to incentivize development projects, including the development of West Haven, that is in 2022. No mention of payment, no budget allocation to settle the West Haven. However, oddly enough, in that same budget, there's a line item that appeared, and it said compensation for the acquisition of the West Haven property. But next to it, it has $0 allocated for it. And the years after that, 2023, 2024, going on, 0 every year. Pay attention. In 2023, he said, we continue to leverage and seek partnership for the development of the former West Haven property. No mention was made of payment, $0 budgeted for, but now the budget is now exposing that there was a payment in 2021. So now in 2023, 2 years later, the budget would have the actuals. So bear with me and do not drop sleep on me now.
I won't.
All of a sudden, you didn't have any budget allocation for West Haven, but all of a sudden, the budget is now recording that 2 years ago, in 2021, you made a payment for compensation.
Wow.
Compensation to whom? I looked through the budget address. There's no mention in the budget address about any monies paid to anyone in 2021. There's no budgeted allocation for payment. So who authorized you to take up Nevis people money in 2021 and pay it to some entity saying that you're paying for the West Haven and you didn't have permission to do so? No, the thing for me is in the Constitution, it states the process, what you need to do. And if you go contrary to that, it doesn't say what the penalty is, and that is frustrating. What do we do with a man like this who floats laws? This is the law of the land. It says if you're going to spend the people money, you must come and you must say that you spend it on what? If it's not in the budget, there's a process for a supplemental budget to be brought. So all of us should have known at that point in time that monies were already started to be paid to West Haven. Steve, did you know that we paid to West Haven in 2021?
This is news to me.
$2,173,520. Do you know that?
No, I'm hearing it for the first
I
time.
have not heard anybody say that, but it is documented in the budget of 2023 that in 2021, the Nevis Island administration would have paid these monies. So now, we come to 2024, and we're not hearing anything. We're not hearing any of that. But now, the end of 2024, and the audit report drops. When the audit report drops, they start to scramble. And you know the reason why I said they start to scramble, Steve? They start to scramble because last year, in 2023, they were saying that up to October, which is the cutoff point, that the monies that they would have paid on the capital expenditure side of things was $44.22 million. Now, in 2025 budget now, they're claiming that up to the same period of time, mind you, from January to October in 2023, that they would have paid $60-something million, 69.12. The two cannot exist. So if you come in here, you have to reconcile it. You have to now come and tell the people, why is it you said last year in the budget that between January to October, you would have paid $44.22 million. But this account here this year now is saying that up to the same period of time last year, they are conflicting. You have to be able to now blow smoke. And so that is what the Premier started to do. He started to blow smoke because he doesn't want us now to recognize that there's a difference between what he presented last year and what he presented this year. So in his usual style, I had to read it a couple times because me not as bright as him. He brighter than stadium bulb. He says, Madam President, capital expenditure for the period January to October 2024 was significantly lower than that for the comparative period of the fiscal year 2023.
Hold your thought for a while. We did promise that we'd open the lines about 9 o'clock. Let's take this caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice with the NRP.
Good evening, Mr. Manazan. Good evening, Auntie Pat.
Good evening.
Yeah, Auntie Pat, just for the record, could you repeat that what you just said again about the payments? I just want to make sure that we are in the same wavelength.
Yeah, if you look in the budget for 2023, it says that in 2021, a payment of $2,173,520 was paid, and the line item says as compensation for acquisition of Rest Haven property. Right? So that is the actual. So in 2023, it will reflect the actual for 2 years prior.
Okay, but you know that matter is still before the court.
I don't know the status of the matter.
No, the matter is still before the court.
I'll accept it from you, but I'm just saying that personally I don't know what the status is because he has not reported in the house, that is our business. If that is our business and we're still in court, he should have said that. But that's not what was said.
I'm not challenging you, but I'm just saying.
And I'm not challenging you either.
I love the way you perceive things because just about a day or two ago, I had to explain to somebody that the NIA has not paid a cent to anybody regarding that matter because the matter is still before the court.
Well, listen up. Let me just finish. Let me finish, and then you tell me what you think at that point in time. Maybe the matter has been withdrawn. I don't know. Let me finish.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me kind of speed it up.
Okay.
All right. Mm-hmm. Because I want to get to the point where you're at today too, And so he would have said that, and I just wanted to read that to say that he was, in a convoluted way. Mm-hmm. He was trying to confuse us so that we wouldn't go back and check. And so, anyway, that's the point I really want to make as it relates to that. So he left out, a lot of things about, he went on to Madam President, I wish to make it clear, and blah, blah, blah. And he tried to muddy. He started to blow smoke. After that, it's like, okay, he just dropped the figures and move on to blowing smoke. Mm-hmm. So he wants to make sure that there's no clarity here now, So apparently what happened is that, and when we get to the auditor's report, or maybe I should go straight to the auditor's report and deal with that matter, since that we're on it. The auditors would have flagged it, and he said, oh, you're going to realize this morning that the auditor would have flagged it. He got caught. That essentially is what would have happened. Because they said he made the admission now in his budget address that they paid finally, and maybe the caller would, want to zoom in on that if he has a copy of the budget address. He said, during the fiscal year 2023, after much deliberation, we finally arrived at a compensation arrangement and therefore had to record the property on our books. Mm-hmm. So an arrangement apparently was reached, he claims. He claims in 2023, even though the budget is now showing that he paid monies in 2021. Why have you paid if you didn't reach an arrangement? Why would you be paying over $2 million of the people's money in 2021? He said the quantum of the expenditure ballooned or capital expenditure, blah, 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 and he went on and saying that, he did best, they did the best in 10 years and all them kind of foolishness there. And he continued to try to muddy the water. However, he had to end up making, and I messed up in that. I should have made a notation as to exactly where it was. But he went on to say that they paid cash, and then the balance, they ended up giving them some 91 days over-the-counter, that instrument that you use, treasury bills. like I said, I messed up because I really should have made a notation as to where that was when he made that statement. He made a statement that he paid some monies in cash. He didn't disclose in the people's house how much cash. Like I said, I stand to be corrected because I didn't listen to him. But based on the recorded, what we have documented budget address, it is not disclosed in here, so nobody could walk away. If you didn't hear, you wouldn't know. And so I'm hoping that he would have said in the House or in Parliament, in the Nevis Island Assembly, how much he paid and how much more we have left. He didn't even disclose at that point how much it was that the deal was. All he said is that they had made an arrangement. As if we finally arranged at a compensation arrangement. As if it is his business. As if this is the business of Daniel Brantley. So you could just make an arrangement, give the people some money, and then give them, so I don't know how much money you gave them. I don't know how much treasury bills you gave them, the value of the face value of the treasury bills. But that was done. But the audit report is what forced him to reveal that had they not brought out the audit report on time, then we would not be hearing that today. And he's claiming that this was done in 2023. So if you would have come to an arrangement in 2023, why didn't you in the 2024 budget, which is at the end of 2023, why not report to the people at that point in time? What is it you have to hide? It is our business. But the thing is, they're in breach of what the law says. How are you going to spend over $25 million of the people's money and not tell them?
Hold it there a while. We've got another caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice with the NRP.
Good night.
Hi, good night.
Dr. Hart, good night.
Good night.
Yes. Let me quickly. You they continue saying that he alone couldn't do that.
Yeah, caller, you're breaking up a bit.
Yeah. No, Dr. Bartlett, you hear me better?
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot better.
Yeah, Dr. Bartlett continues to say that like he make the payment, but he the premier alone couldn't just make the payment to the people, and the attorney general, and then not after that.
No. He's the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
He's the person in charge of finance.
Right. Okay, me understand all that there. But who don't make up all this, for pay over here alone couldn't do that.
Well, obviously.
The government not gonna lie, the government lie and so forth and so. You understand me? You understand what me say? In here the Minister of Finance, right? Okay. But the point about it, yesterday, like he in particular alone couldn't do that. Where the government lie and all that kind of stuff that we have to and the other people lie and so forth and so. You understand me say?
Yes,
That's
I
all
hear
me
you.
talk about. Yeah. Okay then. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to resign from that. I mean, I've said that he's responsible because he is the minister responsible for finance. He knows what the laws are. He's a lawyer. He knows that he cannot just come and spend the people money and not tell them. You must not only tell them, you must get permission from Parliament for those kind of spending. And so when he says that they made an arrangement for compensation and they paid some in cash, how much cash is it? We're not seeing it anywhere on the books. It's not in the budget. It's not in the budget. So apparently, when the auditors were going through the audits, it looked like audit would have said, I had enough of this man. Because they've been in blue, in black. Everything used to be in black. I guess that is the official color of print. But this time around, they put it in Christmas green. They highlighted it in Christmas green. And so you can't not focus on what they're saying. And this is quite damning as far as I'm concerned. How could the Premier, and I suspect who would have been, because the thing is he has a financial advisor that is on the books. Whether the person exists or not, I don't know. But there's a financial advisor, and then there's the PS, who has some, I mean, he's an accountant, I think.
That's which
Colin.
case?
PS
Colin Doe.
Finance.
Yeah.
He's an accountant. So these guys know what they're doing. This is not Mickey Mouse stuff. This is hiding things. Imagine that you just increase how many treasury bills you're gonna issue. They don't go to Parliament and ask for an increase. They just increase it. And so when you're paying out, nobody know who you're paying out to. Understand? So I remember last year when there was some discrepancy and these guys were asking, why this seemed like the Premier off by 40 million in the budget? And I was like, don't worry about it. He's going to just go and just issue some treasury bills.
Budgeting.
And create some, issue some treasury bills to cover that. Because I kind of know the psyche and I understand how these people like to confuse. They like to hide people things. This is, as Hasty would say, they like to obfuscate. They like to play games with people. And the Premier continues to do as he feels like as it relates to the spending of the people's money. Because it's not just that. You see this treasury bill thing? That really is something that these guys would have had to come up with a strategy as to how can we bury this thing and people not know. Pay them some money and then it's like you have a program for monkey tails. Right, Steve? I put you in charge of the monkey tails. And so everybody comes in and gives you a monkey tail, you pay them $10. But because I'm your boss, I go behind and I grab some of the same monkey tails and I go and I give one of my friends. And I say, you go carry the monkey tail and you get the money. Nobody knows. So if someone at the Treasury sees whoever, I don't even know who the owners are, that they say they pay the money to, come with Treasury bills. Well, you have to pay them on the face of value. I mean, the people come to surrender the Treasury bills because the way Treasury bills work.
Let's take this. Good evening. Welcome to Your Voice.
Good night, Dr. Barrett.
Good night.
How the Premier can blame the opposition for his doing. Something happened some years ago with Restream, and I believe the present administration should have been take stock over the people's business. They are there to solve people of needs. They are not in there to solve themselves. These people have something to do. Something happened in the previous administration. All they do, they go and continue the people's business. But they don't do that. That man is a gangster. He is a gangster, and nobody could touch him.
Yep.
If the auditors come down on him, the auditors on him who check in the government payroll and the government business in money, financial situation, they could bring him down. But they have some people in there, some coward. The man is a gangster. And the people who work in the audit department, they should time to get down on that gentleman and let him come out and tell the people about the people's money. You can't hide the people's business, anything pertaining to politics. You come out and tell the people what is going on. If you cannot continue the power for development for Nevis, you just come down. That man is a gangster, and nobody could handle him. But take it easy. One day, he will be handled. Good night. He will be handled one day. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I know some of you wouldn't believe me, but if a lie asked me good friend Mackie, it was a big lying competition to see who they will crown as lying champion.
Just thought I would hear what Lord Nelson had to say about all of this. Go right ahead. I thought I'd give you a moment to catch your breath, but
I could. Because the thing is, I want people to understand that it's not just.
I think we've got a caller again. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice with the NRP.
Yes, because I said that nobody can touch him. But that not the point, any citizen of the country, you see like how I find out that day. Any citizen can take up the matter there. Because this is court matter, If I are really interested, this is court matter. So no matter what premier, prime minister, president, whatever the case may be. You get me? So that's why I made me ask earlier. Well, how we get that they done? Because he alone couldn't do them. So the necessarily permanent secretary and all, and auditors and all, and they have to be involved, and everybody cover up. Well, I just have to take this step. You don't need nothing. Just you see the loophole. Just take this step. Okay then.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank
He
you.
makes a valid point, and that's why I was alluding to the frustration that someone has. Because in the Constitution, it says, that this is the law. But it doesn't say what is the penalty for breaching this particular law. I would imagine that it exists somewhere.
Got another caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Dr. Bartlett. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Steve, I listened to the parts of the budget. I listened to Dr. Hodges' response. And, I just find that the presentation of the budget for Nevis was very willy-nilly and on a low level. A budget is a major policy. For instance, Steve, as you would know, the French Prime Minister Michel Barnier is out of a job because he presented a budget which the parliamentarians didn't like. And as a result, the government collapsed. That's just an indication of how serious a budget must be. The Nevis Island administration budget presentation lacked that level of seriousness, lacked the level of analysis. For instance, I was listening to the budget in Anguilla, and the Premier of Anguilla was saying the labor market survey that they did in Anguilla shows that the country is short of some fundamental skills. And part of the strategy of the government is going to be, they're going to put aside some money, to allocate some money, to beef up the capacity of the country to provide those skills. And in addition, it spoke about Innovate Anguilla, where they are going to make special provisions for small businesses and so on. I'm just using those two to say here we have a similar small island, but the difference is the level of seriousness and the level of commitment. And when you look at what is presented in Nevis, essentially it is very, very wishy-washy. When you do a budget, and Dr. Bartlett, I'm sure Steve, we've seen enough of these. You have to lay out how are you going to generate money in the upcoming year, and B, at what cost, meaning what measures are you going to do, and two, critically, in a small developing country, you have to say what you're going to do with education and what you're going to do with health. You just can't have a budget without clear, concise policies on health and education. And thirdly, Dr. Bartlett, this is in your field. On the question of agriculture, we hear in CARICOM that there is this 25 by 25, where CARICOM governments intend to reduce the food import bill by 25% by 2025. So where is Nevis in the scheme of things? That should be addressed clearly in the budget. What's the position with meat production? Where are we? Consumption, demand versus the level of consumption. I'm just making these points to say how to underscore the point that it is very, very wishy-washy, and that a small place like similar to Anguilla, the leader seems to be far more off with what is required. This fellow here in charge of Nevis, he reminds me very well, 17 years experience in the parliament is 1 year's experience 17 times. There is no growth, there is no development. And the auditor's report pointed to the fact that the Premier's ministry is the one which is reckless with the spending. But if you, the Premier, how the auditor's report get to say that in the ministry, the procurement is the problem. It goes on to say that people are taking the government to court. It goes on to say that there is no proper assessment. All of this leads you to the conclusion that the government doesn't take the budget seriously, and budget is the major policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah. Well, I would have made, I think I made those observations as well, caller. So you think you're right on point. So let me just read just a small snippet of what was in the audit report. It said 9 projects that were realized by the Ministry of Finance, this is in the Premier's ministry, mind you, incurred a total of 30.85 million from the budget of 4.65 million. How could you spend $30.85 million from the budget that was approved that says you were limited to 4.65 million? But apparently it was resulting in a net excess of $26.20 million that they spent, that they overspent. Additionally, 3 significant expenditures were not accounted for in the year's budget. The purchase of bus stops, and I'm sure Kabu, who is always here making a plug for small businesses, would be pleased to know or to note that the Premier has purchased some bus stops for $420,084. And guess what, Cabo? It is to promote your small business. I don't know if that was the best use of the money. I'm sure you would have thought about many other ways that you could have benefited other than for the Premier to go out and buy bus stops. In a time when money short, when money is scarce, the Premier went out and bought bus stops for $420,000. That was not budgeted for. I want people to understand why I keep stressing these things were not budgeted for. If they're not budgeted for, there's a process for you to go through, and we went through that. If you don't go through that process, it means that you're flagrantly disregarding the rules. And you cannot have a flagrant foul and still play. In another jurisdiction, had he been in England, he would have been a goner. Him and the PS Colin may have nothing personal against you, but you know better. You know better. And I'm sure that you would have advised better. But I think that there's always time and place for everything. Maybe you get an opportunity to make a statement that, and add your disclaimers. But in addition to that, the acquisition of the Herbert Beach lands at $2.17 million. And compensation for a Restream property amounting to, hear this, Steve, and you probably would have heard it before, $25.48 million. So I don't know if this compensation of $25.48 million that the auditors reveal here, if that is in addition to the $2 million that they already paid in 2021. But this is information that was not brought to us. It was never brought to Parliament, never brought to the Nevis Island Assembly as much as I'm aware of. I mean, there are a lot of times I just ignore what they're saying and what he's saying, but I usually look forward to the gazettes, and so sometimes I would know that these things happen, and that is when it really is a matter for me. But notwithstanding, when you would have spent all of that, and now you see the Methodist Church right here as well? There was an allocation for the Methodist Church for $500,000. They ended up spending $1 million, 100% increase on what the budget allowed you. That is unconscionable. That is unpardonable. In any other jurisdiction, the Premier and the PS would have been goners. Maybe, I don't know to what extent the legal advisor would have been involved, because I don't understand how we could make these deals. And I want people to understand, when I said a while ago about these treasury bills that you can just go in, what happens is that the government issues treasury bills. If you have extra money and you want to make some money on it, more than what the bank would give you, you go and you buy these things, and then you go back at the end of the period of time when it matures, and you collect what you would have lent the government plus a little something on it, the interest. And usually it is at a higher rate, it's more attractive. It's a higher rate as than what you will get on your savings account. So some people would opt for that and make a little money like that. There's nothing wrong with it, except that you owe a man and you're going to give him some. You owe the man, and so you give him some, you just pull out a couple of them and you give him and you say, look now, go in the treasury. Whenever you think they have money and I'm going to call you, I'll call you and let you know when money is available. Just go to the head of the line and collect. So nobody needs to know. No one needs to know that I'm paying you, because that is what the scheme was. It is a scheme. This is a scandalous thing that has happened. Why the premier, I think, that is my theory, why he was blowing smoke. And so he started to say, oh, it's NRP fault because they took the West Haven property and they didn't pay. They didn't pay because they didn't have the time to pay or whatever the circumstances were, but you were well aware of it. And 20 years later, almost, well, maybe
2007.
2007
17.
up to now. 17 years later, you're going to pay for it, and don't expect that it would be at that level. And who negotiated on our behalf? Was it the legal advisor? I don't know. What kind of legal advice are we getting? And we're paying for it, but is it female friend to it? And that is the thing when you have so much friendly, because one of the callers would have asked, if the legal, people were involved in this deal, because obviously there should be some kind of legal instrument to dictate the terms when you're going to pay back. But it seems like in the budget, they still have under the same West Haven compensation line item, they still have zero budgeted for 2024 going forward. So apparently they didn't get enough time to fix that part of it after the audit dropped on them, and they had to reveal. He came out saying, oh, it's NRP why we have to pay all this money. And everybody on the social media on the weekend trying to defend NRP, not recognizing that there's a bigger fish to fry, not recognizing the illegality of the actions of this premier. How could you just take up $25 million and give somebody a 26.2 because Herbert's speech thing and the Methodist thing come up? How could you do that without the blessings or without the authorization from the body that was really organized and put there with the level of respect and responsibility that you have to come and say, Your Honor, and say, to get, I mean, there's protocol surrounding all that. The seriousness surrounding that process is not no little pian thing, like the caller said a while ago. And so it really infuriates me when I read when the premier would try to make things look as if everything in Nevis is running so rosy and everybody could look to a great 2025 coming up.
Good evening, caller.
Yes. Let me hear one inquiries. And remember, upon the other end, if you can't get on this end, the other end have no answer, Because if me okay, suppose I'm in my land. Remember, me personally, no deal with land, the owner for the land now have got a liar too. You catch me, because the owner for the land have got his end straight and clear. So then this a call for an inquiry. I mean, I don't say which inquiry, but he call for an inquiry. So it's just up to you. Okay then.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, this is
It's serious business.
It is serious business. This should not be able to stand. This is what, when you look in the dictionary and you're looking for the word malfeasance, this is what it should look like. What the premier did here is something that is unpardonable. He should not be allowed to continue in office having done what he did as relates to this matter. He obviously tried to hide this information. And had it not been for the audit report, which is coming in 2023. If it had it been late, we wouldn't hear anything about it because it wasn't anything inside the budget to address that. This is what malfeasance in office means. It's an unlawful conduct, any unlawful conduct, and that is unlawful. Any unlawful conduct that is often grounds for a just cause removal of an elected official by statute or recall, election, or even additionally a crime. Yeah, I don't think the Premier should be able to walk away from this one, Steve. Blaming NRP is foolishness. That's blowing smoke. All on the weekend, he couldn't rest. All on the weekend, somebody's like, oh, this is what the Premier is saying. Why is he obsessed with this thing, everything gone? You're still trying to drum up, noise, saying it's the NRP fault. Who cares about what your deficit was? Everybody knows you can't return a decent budget. So it is not about that. But what even gets to me more is that the auditors had some other scathing remarks to make. And when I go on an investigation of Steve, all this is happening under the Premier. When the auditors said that they look at the practice nowadays of ordering stuff, when I went back, and I make sure that I went back to all the audit reports, I was busy this weekend. I went to all the audit reports, all the way back to 17 and 18, because that's when, the reign of this king, because he must be a king, that is when it started. And up to that point, the only transgression that we would have had, the audit would have been making reference to, I think, maybe in two previous before that, because I went back a little bit more, sorry, is that people were paying salaries out of wages bill, that kind of thing. They used to do them kind of practices, you don't have enough money to pay people, on the way that should be paid. And so you pay the salaries from the wages bill, but, and it's not something that you should practice for good accounting practices, but they would have done it, and so they would have complained a little bit about that. It wasn't anything highlighted in green or red. But when you come to 2017 and 18, there is where what Brownie people call bubble, that is where bubble started. Because the auditors started to pick up things like purchase orders. They're going with purchase orders and the quantities are not in. So when a man goes to TDC, I hope they don't mind me saying TDC or hospital, this is free advertisement. When they go to the hardware store, they put in what they want. So you left the office where the executive officer is, who is supposed to be controlling the vote, with a blank slate. So you could put in that you collect 20. You could put in that 20 at that point when the project might only want thing. And they were saying, since 2017 and 18, they started to make this notation. I hadn't seen it before that. If it existed before that, somebody's gonna have to tell me. But that is when the practice started.
Let's take this. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Your Voice.
Good evening, Mr. Manos, and good evening, Pat.
Good evening.
The saga with the Restream in, there's something that is missing that we need to add. In that when the NRP was in office and they acquired the property, it was appraised. And my information says to me that it was appraised for $3 million.
Yes, that's what we heard, yeah.
We also was told that after the government changed and CCM got in, CCM got a different group to appraise the same property.
Right.
And the property moved from $3 million to $17 million.
Yes.
So rather than paying $3 million, because government is continuous, they chose to reevaluate the property, put it up to 17, and now the Premier wants to blame NRP for the position that he's in.
Yeah, but no bother with that. It's neither here nor there. He can't blame NRP for it, and everyone knows that. I just didn't go through that again because to me, that is of no moment. At this point, who is to be blamed? I mean, it is true that you might have had an appraisal done, whether or not they are agreed, because ultimately it comes down to the agreement between the parties. So your praise and your praise for 10, if I don't agree, it makes no difference what the appraisal was. The thing is, at the end of the day, what was the agreement? What was the agreement between the people who you took it from, the owners and the creditors? Somewhere between there was some issue between the creditor and the owner. I don't even know if that was resolved, because when the Premier made his presentation, he did not distinguish as to whom he would have paid this money. One would assume that this is the owner, but I don't know if it's the owner or the creditor. I don't know if he was directed to pay to whomever. I don't know where the arbitration took place, if there was, in order for them to reach an agreement as to how much was going to be paid. And everyone knows that, everyone knows, and I think maybe I made the assumption that everyone knew. If you listen to Your Voice with the NRP, you probably would have listened to on the Target, and you would have listened to Tell Me. So I just assume that everybody would have known that already.
Let me ask you one more question. Seeing that we had multiple parties claiming ownership of that property, do you know who were the legal representatives for the different owners of that property?
I don't know.
Okay.
And I'm saying that that information was not shared with us, so I don't know to whom these monies were paid. I don't know if it was a split, that one portion went to the creditor and one portion went to the owner. I don't know. I hope that Macefield got all of the 25 million, if you don't mind me, because he's my friend and I might get a change. But I shouldn't make light of it either. Because it's a serious situation.
Okay, I am interested in finding out who were the legal representatives for the owners who were vying for the property. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Sure,
thank you.
Thanks for your intervention. And those are valid questions, you know. I mean, as to who the representatives are, I don't think I even care. I just want to know who we pay money to, you know, and what our commitment is. I don't think it is proper to just dish out a whole heap, what you call them, treasury bills, and just dish them out and tell a man come when he feel like, you know. I don't like that kind of arrangement. I want something that makes sense, that says our ability to pay over a period of time. You and I make an arrangement to pay this $25 million. Things are tight right now. You can't get to $25 million in 2025. But, put it on the budget. Let us put it in the budget that every year we pay a portion and we know. Just like how we owe Social Security. Just like how we owe everybody else, because we owe National Bank, with all these different entities. It is documented. We know what we committed to. If tomorrow, God forbid, somebody get knocked down and who know all these secrets, who you going to present, But these people have all these bills, these T-bills out there, these treasury bills out there floating out there, and we don't even know who's going to show up tomorrow with these T-bills. I think that this Premier need to go home, and not go home tomorrow. I mean, he should just stay home, nobody come back, because he wants to, in his budget, want to tell people that things are so good in Evis. He says, Madam President, in paragraph 34, VAT continues to be a significant source of revenue for the administration. The level of VAT collection can also be used to measure, as a measure of the economic well-being of the island. He says VAT is used to measure the economic well-being of the island. Now, you must collect more VAT if everything in the country more expensive. If things are twice as expensive as they were 2 years ago, you don't expect that VAT you're going to be collecting twice as much? So don't come and try to just butter up these things, because like I said, this cannot work. This cannot work, and I don't think that we should let it stand. Like I said, I think that apart from the fact, and the thing is now, the Minister of Agriculture himself was making a presentation, because apparently they all, it's everybody understand together, collective responsibility. And so everybody going there, it's NRP fault, trying to distract us from what the real issue is. And then he comes and said, and now we have to go pay $1.4 million for the property down at Jessop's Bay that apparently was acquired under the NRP as well. But that is since NRP left office since what?
2013. 22nd January.
You ain't pay the people the $1.4 million, but you went go buy the property up at Bad Plain and have no use for it. But you see, the thing is, And this again is another observation, and I could be wrong, my theories could be all off. But they're around the place scrambling, trying to get their hands on as much as they could, as cheap as they could, to shore up their portfolio as it relates to their assets. Because nothing is there.
You mean?
Nothing is there to guarantee any loans. Why do you think they're going to pay these people at this point in time? Because they have the money? They don't have the money. But they need assets. Because they couldn't even borrow $10 million from National Bank because they don't have anything to guarantee it. When you look at all of our debt that are considered to be local debts, that are debts within the confines of St. Kitts and Nevis, these debts are all guaranteed by the Nevis Island Administration. The only debt that we have sovereign guarantee for, where the federal government has been guaranteeing, are those overseas debts. Because they ain't going to deal with you, you have to have a sovereign guarantee. So all of a sudden, we want a loan from National Bank. And we have to go to the federal government. The federal government now has to go to pass a resolution in Parliament to say, okay, we put our blessings on this. You could go. Because what? They have to guarantee a loan for us now. That has never happened before. Because we do not have anything, no collateral. We cannot guarantee. It's like taking a Christmas loan and say, well, you don't need no collateral for this. But not even a Christmas loan you could get for National Bank. We have to have a guarantee. Imagine that. But we wanted $20 million.
Wanted 30.
Well, what the resolution is speaking to is 20. I don't know if the approach to the federal government was for 30. I'm just dealing on the face value of what is before the public. And so the federal government has to guarantee $20 million from National Bank up the road there. You understand? Because we have no assets. So they're scampering around now, even buying bus stops. Because they could show, well, our portfolio here, land portfolio is this. We have a piece, we have the Restream property, we have the piece down at the Jessops, and we have bus stops that, have some value in them because you can advertise on them so they have value. That is what happened. We are broke. We are not only broke, we are broken, and we are bankrupt. Because when you get to this stage where you can't even guarantee your own loan, it means that you reach the point of bankruptcy. And that's where we are. So all these platitudes that the Premier would have brought forward, about how rosy things going to be, and he collecting so much money because the economy is good, so he collecting so much money. Garbage. It is garbage, and people need to focus. This budget that was presented is so myopic, it's so, short-sighted. I mean, what are we doing next year? Are we anticipating that maybe the winds that are coming from the north would not be that pleasant? Because we used to get our remittances from the States, but now maybe this would be turned upside down because of the introduction of a new president with a different mindset as it relates to black people, as it relates to immigrants. When he comes in with this posture, how comfortable are our people abroad going to be in terms of sending back remittances to us to help us through next year?
Good evening, caller.
Mr. Manners, tonight, this, Dr. Bartlett, this not a talk show, this one serious show, I mean, me listen to Target and thing. Well, you make this here more than just one talk show, So guess what? You can work for the know, you don't pick it up, but you can work for the know, the work that you got for the know.
Well,
you say you walk with green hat during the Christmas season. I want petition. You're gonna have to get and your Christmas have to spend now for see how much signature you can get on a petition sheet to get some kind of result, Okay then.
Thanks for the advice. You look like I have to retain you as a legal advisor because you give good advice for free.
Okay.
Caller,
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, because I probably wouldn't get to say Merry Christmas to you again. We have another call?
No.
Okay. So that is how serious things are. So because I realize that we're out of time.
Listen. As I said, this is the last time you're here for the year. I ain't got nowhere to go but home if you want a couple more minutes because...
Why they must charge us extra, you know.
Oh, okay.
But in any event,
all right.
yeah, I started to talk before we were interrupted on the calls.
Well, not
about-
interrupted. We're always happy to have
I
you.
didn't mean it in a bad way. I just meant when I had to break to go
Yeah,
on call.
yeah, okay.
That's what that's all.
Good evening again. I think that was just a ring back. Okay.
Oh, we missed it. Okay, so I started to talk about how this CCMNIA has deteriorated, and it started under the premier, the present premier. 2017, we didn't have no issues before about people, because when I was in the civil service, there were strict guidelines as to how you're going to purchase.
Good evening, caller.
Yeah, me here a while ago. Me say, well, since this is the last one, let me get in this one quick.
Okay.
But that's just for me, eh? That doesn't mean other people not going to be here. It just meant for me.
Yeah, not the same budget. It may talk about put on trackers on the government vehicles.
Yes.
You hear that one there?
Yes.
That's a foolishness.
Yes, it is.
Look, it no matter what tracker you got on, if I want party supporter, it run the whole place. The point about it, you just put on your foot. You put on your foot, who I go got the vehicle at one certain time, what time them for work.
Yeah.
You just put on your foot.
Of course.
So put on one tracker now, more money you go spend, because now you forgot somebody a monitor that one of the higher, and so forth and so. That's a foolishness. So
It is.
So just cut out the ignorance. And it got some me want to talk about MSR and so, but next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, me too.
But watch me. Let me big up the cricketer daughter, they forget this black belt.
Sonelda Willett.
Black belt.
Yes.
Sonelda.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And let me say, well, Merry Christmas to everybody. And JD me listen to you last week, but me no want to derail you, so me just step out. Because you see, when you hear up his speakers then come on, it's difficult for calling, because people want to hear you. You get me? Okay then.
Yes. Well, thank you and all the best for the season as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the last.
No.
person
We
okay,
have
yes,
next
yes,
week.
yeah. Okay, good. So,
which
yeah.
is the
I just didn't
16th.
want anybody else to think that this was it.
No,
you
no,
know,
no,
yeah.
no.
Yeah. So I was talking about how things are deteriorated under this film, and everybody does they feel like, because of course he's doing as he feels like. So everyone else, it seems, has license to do likewise. So he spends more than he's budgeted, and he doesn't come back to Parliament to get his, the authorization. The people now who are on the ground, who for the most part, from what I'm hearing, are people who are his supporters. So they now come into the service, whether they know the protocol or not, it means that they have some work to do at the Ministry of Finance in terms of making sure that everybody who ought to know knows that this is what the protocol is. But executive officers should know better. Because when I was working at the Agriculture Department, you ain't going nowhere with no order that is not filled out. Everything, Orlando Sergeant was boy, you couldn't get anything past. You wanted a pair of boots to work boots or some tools for the farm or whatever. You had to go and find out how much costs, where you're going to get it. So when you come, you have all this information. And when there's no room, they cross a line to everything else. You cannot add any other item. So these were not people who were joking. So I don't know who they have nowadays, call themselves executive officers, who are in control of these votes, but they need to take them away. These people ought not to have a government order book. Because you're telling me that somebody leaves, goes down to TDC or Horsford, and this apparently is where most of this pilferage is taking place. And the auditor is saying that they can't find documents to support these purchases, all those kind of things. And these things could lead to fraud. Well, I'm here to say tonight, these things are not, it's not that these things could lead to fraud. These things are representing the fraud that is going on. Because I've had one-on-one, I've talking tours with people who work at these places. And, people could tell me, well, this person passed, it came for 14 windows, but when I passed by this school that they're putting in windows in, only, five of the school, 5 of the windows in there. And you have an order that say for Prospect School you need 10 windows. A man goes, take 5 home by he. So you have people here, right here in Nevis right now, who are living at the expense of the taxpayers, who are building at the expense of taxpayers. If they haven't yet already built 1 or 2 homes, they're in the process of doing so. Because they're not buying anything, they're not going to the banks for loans, they're just building them off of our backs. Because you tell me an executive officer going to give you an open order for you to go to the... Things have gotten so bad that the audit report had in it that they were querying some supplies that some officer would have purchased. When they asked, the person had the attitude and wanted something to the extent to which, oh, what we buy is for our comfort and for our well-being, or something to that effect. No, that is out of order to supply an answer like that. But that is the level of comfort these people have in spending money for things that are not budgeted for. Because under which head you're going to go get to buy your classic coffee or whatever it is that, they want for their comfort. This is ridiculous, and it's not going to stop because the Premier himself is in breach, so he can't say nothing to nobody else. And the caller rightly said that when he talk about putting on trackers, he sounds so ridiculous. He's just saying to the people out here, or saying to the general public, I am not in charge. Because I can't tell them nothing. Poor me, I got to go put on trackers to see where they go. He knows. He knows. The people them who are using vehicles unauthorized, because they're taking the money, nobody could tell me nothing. That is the attitude with some of them. And so everything has deteriorated under this Premier. It is time for him to go. Electricity in arrears, but just before he came into office in 2016, there was a reset, and Nevlec was paid all the arrears that government had owed.
Caller, we've gone past 10. You've got to be quick. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. It is really a concern that I have about these executive officers. But if it happens from the top, you're going to filter down,
Of course.
Once wrong starts from the top, is going to filter down. And who up to the top will say, this is wrong.
Right.
Thing is wrong. I mean, the executive officers should not purchase an order and give out an order without knowing, first of all, if a contractor or a contractor wants material, they should have an order what they want, and somebody will back check. You have somebody what you call the person? I think the guy somebody who works for public works, who oversees public works. These are people who are supposed to be able to back check these things here in advance to make sure that when an order comes when you give an order, they should be able to say, well, okay, this order is in order. And so you could write down the amount of material that you're going to want. This is not right. It's not right, and it's costing the taxpayers money. How can that be right? You want a thing on cost. You want 2 windows, and then next thing you're going to order 10? Jeez. Right.
Okay, call. All right, good night. It's
So there's much to talk about, much to, for us to unpack, but unfortunately we're out of time, so some of it's going to have to wait until next year. But like I said, let us not fall for this and get into this thing with the Premier about whose fault it was.
Let's just squeeze this one in. Good evening, caller. Please be quick.
Good evening again, Mr. Manners.
Please be quick. Please be quick.
Running a government, we have to be serious. What the Premier should do, call all the heads of department Monday morning and have a meeting with them pertaining to government finances. And those who not appear, he could deal with them after. People them sit down and relax and the government. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
That will be your final call for the night. And
Yeah.
Pat, it's over to you.
Well, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We can't be as lavish as we were last year. Unfortunately, I'll have to apologize now. So don't expect the level of gift giving that we did last year. It's going to be really, really, really streamlined this year, just for those people who are, needy. In that column, the needy people, we try to help them out for Christmas. So if you didn't get anything from us this year, don't get upset with me and say, NRP people don't give, because you know that I'm always giving, but it's just circumstances. Remember, I have to pay the premier every month.
Oh, wow.
And so, yes, and, he's going to extract blood from everybody. And so let us be mindful of that. Let us don't think that Christmas is just about giving of gifts and getting gifts. But remember the true meaning of Christmas. Be kind. Be kind to your neighbors. Help people out who seem to be struggling a little more than you. And let us have a Merry Christmas. And see you again next year, God's willing. As my mom would say, God's willing. Next year we'll be here and we'll unpack some of this budget.
Thank you, Pat. You've been firing on all 6 cylinders tonight. You were hot. If airtime was free, we'll stay till midnight. But we've got to go. We're over time. But I think you've really laid it out in a very great fashion. Let's end this way.
Liars from all parts of the West Indies. Big shot liars from all them foreign countries. From a feel about 1,000 or so entry in 2 days. He boiled